So I just started my shift. It would have been around 11 o'clock at night. A person that had called through was really struggling with thoughts of ending their life and was out and about, and it seemed pretty high risk.
Daniel Fabris had more than 13 years' experience as a telephone counsellor, but the call that night shook him.
Then I heard the phone hit something, like it had fallen, and then I heard loud guttural screaming. My thoughts in that moment were that this person had ended their life.
The caller survived, but Daniel Fabris struggled to keep working.
There were nights I couldn't sleep, there were nights I had nightmares. I was thinking about ending my life, and that's something I'd worked to help people not to for 13 years.
Daniel Fabris was working for an organisation called On the Line. The not-for-profit received more than $17 million in government funding last financial year. On the Line counsellors answer some of the calls to 26 of Australia's most well-known telephone crisis lines, including 1800-RESPECT, Suicide Callback Service and Men's Line.
Sometimes you just need to talk to someone who understands what you're going through.
Who won't judge or take sides, who will listen to what it is you have to say.
And offer advice.
Counsellors at On the Line can answer calls to more than a dozen different lines in a shift. Professor Ian Hickey says crisis helplines are increasingly being subcontracted to third-party providers.
COVID's created tremendous pressure on the mental health system. We were already struggling before the COVID crisis. Now there's a huge increase in demand for services. So the difficulty here is the demand goes up and we don't really have the capacity to respond, that the quality goes down. And when people are being paid for the activity, not for the outcome or the quality, you can see the danger.
Counsellors at On the Line have told 7:30 they've been under increasing pressure to reach call targets.
At one point there was an email that came out that discussed 5-second answer windows, so 5 seconds from the time the phone rang to answering it, and trying to keep our calls to call average to 17 minutes. There's this real huge conflict, internal conflict, that happens for myself as a counsellor to be able to be present with a caller that's talking about ending their life, and at the back of my mind have this voice telling me that I've got 17 minutes. I was taking more calls than ever before, more intense calls than ever before, and that clinical supervision had been removed and I had no support or outlet for myself.
Dr. Catherine Wolfe resigned from her clinical coordinator role at On the Line last month.
I think between 2018 and 2020, they lost about 50% of their staff, both management and counsellors.
She says many staff are afraid to speak out about the pressure they're under.
Because they're so short-staffed, the lines haven't been covered. They were very focused on just getting more and more and more lines. That was their bottom line.
As part of her job, Dr. Wolfe reviewed calls made to the crisis lines. She was disturbed by what she heard.
There was a call where a pregnant woman had taken an overdose and called in and was growing drowsy. On the Line's risk framework is that if someone is in a suicide in progress, we initiate a call trace and we would usually call the police or the ambulance. That's what we're meant to do. There wasn't a call trace done, and I think they were just told to call 000. And because we had an inexperienced counsellor or a counsellor who hadn't been trained and wasn't comfortable with risk assessment, it's just not being done.
No, I'm not aware that that's happening in our organisation. I'd be very surprised if that's the case.
Dr. Nicholas Voudouris is On the Line's acting CEO.
Are you confident that staff are getting enough training?
Look, the board we do acknowledge that there has been some inadequacy in some of our training for people moving between lines. That's true. And we, as I mentioned at the outset, we definitely have that on our list to improve, as an improvement we need to make. We certainly do need to bolster our training, and we'll be putting that in place as soon as we can.
Internal emails obtained by 7:30 reveal On the Line has been struggling to meet client and funder requirements as indicated by below target answer rates and providing an extremely poor level of service. 2 weeks ago, staff were told in a video message that On the Line's CEO, Samantha Fredericks, had suddenly resigned.
The board commissioned an independent investigation which found Samantha to be responsible for inaccurate reporting on Suicide Line Victoria and an ineffective workplace culture.
7:30 has been told call figures relating to Suicide Line Victoria had been artificially inflated.
The misreporting, high levels of staff turnover, absenteeism and difficulty meeting the expectations of our funders has caused stress.
Former board member Dr Nicholas Voudouris is now acting in Samantha Fredericks' role.
If the former CEO was responsible for misreporting of call figures, so that's essentially the organisation lying about the number of calls that they took to secure government funding, isn't that fraud?
It's certainly a problem it's certainly the fact that we didn't report correct figures to government, that's for sure.
We're talking about millions of dollars in government funding here.
Well, we are talking about a lot of money, and it is a very serious problem, and I don't want to underplay the extent of this problem. It is very serious. The board has taken responsibility for it. The organisation certainly feels very upset about what's happened. It's hit everybody very hard, and the board is committed to making sure that something like this never happens again.
But former staff say their complaints have gone unanswered for months.
We're talking about suicide prevention services in some cases, so lives are just at risk. Services aren't being run the way they're supposed to, funds aren't being used the way they're supposed to.
I think people watching have a right to feel upset and disappointed with the fact that there was a failure in our governance and our reporting to government. But look, the fact is the board has, as I said, been very open and transparent and accountable around this failure, and we are genuinely deeply disturbed by the fact that this happened on our watch.
Men's Line is a national 24/7 counselling and support service for...
Former CEO Samantha Fredericks also accepted responsibility, telling 7:30 the misreporting was clearly unacceptable and that she wishes to apologise to On the Line's funders, staff and the community. Councillor Daniel Fabris won a workers' compensation claim against On the Line in 2019. He's now back at work, helping others at a new organisation. He'd like to see his former colleagues better supported at On the Line.
It's sad to think that at some point, someday, somebody might not get the service they need that might help them not end their life because somebody was worried about whether they'd end up being performance managed at the end of the month.
These are the people who are often the last person your loved ones will speak to before they make a decision that's life-altering or life-ending. And these people want to do well. They're not even asking for more wages. All they're asking for is safety in the workplace.
Hi, I'm Lee Sales. Thanks for watching this story. If you'd like to watch more of 7:30's stories, they are on the left of your screen. And tap on the button below to subscribe and get the latest from ABC News.